If you are a reader or you are obsessed with self help, this is the video for you. Introducing the very lovely and even color coordinated Keshia Jackson. She is the author and founder of Healing Through Self Love. She specializes in emotional healing and holistic living and self love, all words and terms I love. So I was right away drawn in, but she does have a mission to guide individuals to heal from within, reclaim their authentic selves through self love and holistic living. So, welcome on, love.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so we first sort of connected when I started that book review on
Yeah.
Attached. So we started talking about that, and then whenever I went to your channel, I'm like, "Ooh, like I love all these topics. Everything you post, I'm like, ooh, I need to see that. I like that. I like that. I like that." So
Right, right.
it was a great intro. But since we talked about that first before we show off your book, in Attached, did you have time to take that quiz on your attachment style?
I did. And it said that I was secure, but it also said that I was fearful, which does match. So I was like, okay, okay. But like far as secure, I was really kind of like thrown off just a tad because I mean they ask current, questions versus kind of like more so childhood or past type things. So if they would have asked more past, then I would have kind of had more of an attachment. But over the years, I kind of grown and learned to do. So it actually put me into now a secured place. So
Well, that's the place to be, so that's a
yes,
good thing, but
definitely growth.
I
Yes.
think almost everyone I've talked to, especially women, have said, like, I have changed over time, whether
Yes.
moving from one space or another, but from insecure to secure. And I don't know if we just pick up the good tendencies or it
Mhm.
comes from the self healing. I feel like mine came from healing and therapy,
Yes.
things I did
Yes.
along the way. Do you think yours
Yes.
probably switched up as well?
Definitely.
That makes
Yes.
perfect sense.
Yes.
Honestly, like, I feel like it does make sense that when we do the work, we see the results, especially in relationships. So I know
Yes.
in one of your recent you were talking about, was it 19 years you've been married?
Yes, in April. I actually got married on my birthday. So April 14th would be 39 years age of myself and then married 19 years. Yes.
That is definitely impressive. That's goals right there. When you said it, I'm like doing the math. I'm like, how does that make sense? So I'm like, you just look
Yes.
good for
I
your
got
age.
married.
That's all. That's a good thing. So that's great. Do you think even you said throughout course of life with healing, you think things have changed? But what about throughout course of your marriage? Do you think your attachment style has developed and grown too?
Yes. So of course I got married at 20. So going in broken was something that I did know straight off. And so that's what put me on this journey for that inner work because I didn't want to not be a great wife to my husband. And so we're actually going to do a collaboration together to talk about marriage with my husband because we both got married broken. And so when two people are broken, it is a disaster. But if two people love each other, they grow together and change together. So
That
it did
definitely
not start off good. It
that
was,
makes
it was,
sense though.
it,
Things evolve over time, and especially if you guys had the insight to realize that you needed some work, that's huge. I think in society now, those words, self-help and healing and traumas and all the words we did not have back in the
right.
day are
Yeah.
so common now that hopefully future generations will have to go through less of the up and down and roller
Yeah.
coasters to get to those secure places. But I do think there's definitely so much hope for people because the information is out there. We don't have to, go to the library and look through 25 million books now. We can search
Yeah.
what we're looking for and it's right there. Speaking
Absolutely.
Speaking of books, I know you definitely are into the reading too, and I have read a lot. You are on my must read list for this year, so it's gonna happen. But tell us a little bit about your healing book and talk through kind of what that did for you.
Okay. So the journey started because I'm a big writer. So I'm always writing, I'm always thinking and analyzing. So I've always written poems, I've always written in my diary. It was just always a constant thing. So along this journey, I began to research and pray and actually seek guidance on how I could heal and be better because I knew to be that better wife, to actually be the future mother to my kids, I needed to be at a better place. And so it was very important for me to do that and get that work within myself. And of course, I have godparents that was able to guide me, but they were more focused on ministry per se versus like complete inner work. And so that kind of went left to right with that. But what led me to my book is because I come across like-minded women all the time with these same type of issues. And so me along my journey, I'm able to help them, push them, empower them. And then they come back later like, oh, you helped me so much. Thank you for your encouragement, your guidance, etc. So a lot of people like, you just seem so strong. And I'm like, yeah, but y'all really don't know within me what's really going on within myself. And so a lot of people were very surprised of small things that I would share with them of everything I've been through in my life because the outside may look different than what it truly appears to be. And so I decided to write my book, and it's called Self Love, A Journey to Emotional Healing, because it starts me with everything I went through from childhood up. And there's some things that I share in my book that most people didn't know anything about. And so when I actually had people to read my book, they were in total shock. Like, you're just so strong on the outside. I can't believe that you battled in these areas all these years to now be at a place that you can share it with the world. Because at one place it used to hurt and I would cry. But now I can tell my story. And even though it's still touchy, I can tell it with knowing that I came and overcame it. And so now I'm at a better place to be able to share with others so they can heal within, reclaim their self, and then live a life rooted with self acceptance and true love for themselves first.
I love all of that. That's I feel like that's so much to unpack, but it's
Yeah.
amazing when people are able to put their passion with the writing, mix it in with their pain and help somebody from it. So
Yeah.
that is huge. And you're so right that there are women out there who have gone through so many crazy things and don't really know where to start. And if you've already unlocked that, you don't have to start from, ground zero. You can start with someone who's already mastered it, especially if there's been, multiple things that you've overcome. Do you think there were any specific resources or things that helped you along the way when you were writing your book? Like, where were you able to pull from? Obviously, life experiences, but was there anything else that really just helped you get to that healing place?
Yes. So I finished college. I'm actually certified as a medical assistant. And so the first thing that really helped me was actually working with a psychiatrist. So it was just like I said, this is like divine. This is my divine path because God had actually opened me up to actually get in a position with a psychiatrist. And at first I was like, I don't know, like she gonna actually try to get in my personal business. But we had grown so close. And it didn't start off, perfect. But we had grown over time so close. She taught me so many things on how to even self-evaluate myself. So she was a big resource to that. And then also she led me to different things to search. And so I was able to search those things and write them down and learn and grow from them. And so from that experience, that was that gave me the ability to put everything in my book in that confined way to actually get my message across to whoever decides to read it.
That's awesome. And they do say, whether with sports or anything else, it only takes one good resource, one person really pouring into you that information you need. And just like a ball player or something else, just really needs that one person pouring in. She fed into
Right.
your passion and gave you that information you did not have. So now you can share it with others. I love that. On, let's see, I think it was, I can't remember the name of this video, but on one of your recent videos, you were talking a little bit about childhood drama. And with having 5 million kids, I think the childhood stuff is always very interesting to me, just because you never know, those super small moments can really have such a big impact, and something very minor can take years or hours of therapy or just so much healing to get through. And there was something that you said about the big 3 that children really, really need to feel that love, and I would love if you could go through that a little bit and break that
Okay.
down for our audience.
Okay. So my number three things that I know that I needed, and then I actually observe my kids that they need to, and then I can observe other kids to see where this kind of like an experiment, observing to see where these three things lacked. And so that first thing was that love, and then praise, and that safety. And so for me, speaking for myself, I know I didn't get that safety, that security of knowing that I was safe. Um, Me and my sisters, we moved from place to place. So we never had a secure home. You know, my mom struggled to take care of us. We were almost living like, well, basically at a poverty state. And so we never had enough. We always lacked food. We always lacked the resources that we needed. We moved from place to place. So that security of me knowing if I was safe definitely had put a burden on me. And then far as that love, I knew my mom loved me, but she could not express the love because her mom ended up passing away at her young age as well. And so all she had was her father, and so their relationship wasn't as pleasant as she had wanted it to be as well. He had that kind of tough love type of attitude. And so to kind of like move it along, my father was in the picture, but not in the picture. So I saw my dad, but didn't completely get to experience a relationship with him. And then on top of that, that praise. I was not able to get that praise, to get that, Keisha, you're doing well, keep going, learn from your mistakes, or, you can do better here if you adjust this, whatever. Like, I never was able to say, good job. So I had to just keep going for me. And so I've noticed with my kids, I said, let me pay attention to just how their behavior is when it comes to these areas. And I was able to see that, yes, love is so vital for kids at their age because it develops them on how they see themselves. And then that praise, just a little praise, not to always pat them on the back because then they will actually continue to think that that's what they deserve.
That's the
But
standard, yep.
but just to give them that praise, "You're doing well, keep going." I seen the difference even in their walk. And so that security, making sure they feel safe, making sure they feel wanted and that they deserve to be here has did wonders even in this process, even now, growing and showing them totally what they're capable of. I see the difference in what my children could actually grow to be versus what I struggle with trying to find myself. So,
Oh, yes. I think it closes a lot of the gaps if you are able to recognize those things. And I completely agree that those are the big 3. It does not matter any child I think about or any relationship I think about, or even with the attachment styles. it still goes back to something's missing or something is too much. Like with the praise, if there's too much praise, that's their standard.
Yeah.
And if they have a different experience when they walk out of the front door of the home, then like, wait, they don't worship me? Like, what is wrong? Like, am I not the most
Mhm,
amazing person
mhm.
here too? That can lead to a lot of the problems with the narcissism,
Yeah.
especially, but even with avoidant, if they don't get that same level from the world that they get from mom. So overpraise is its own special bucket, but those minimums, which ideally they should be minimums, if
Mhm.
we really think about it, how many households don't have those? How many people have a situation where they can look back and say, "Yeah, I was not getting that." Even with, food insecurity, 25% of the population, that's the normal on an everyday basis, and that's for all income levels. There are people that make crazy money that you would not look at them and think that they've ever had to experience anything, but, food insecurity, like, they're in the same boat. So a lot of these issues don't really get talked about. They're behind the scenes, and there are people like you that are vulnerable to say, like, "Hey, I had to deal with this, this, and this," but there are so many people who have been trained, especially men, from a young age, that we don't talk about those things. Like, those are behind closed doors conversations. That's
Yeah.
not for public consumption. Like, people don't talk about those things. So how do people heal what they're not allowed to talk about? it goes
Right.
it goes
Right.
so deep so fast, but there are so many commonalities, like just bad situations that people started in. And if they would have had those basic three things, of course, food and water too, we know that, but actually, studies and science say that the love and praise is more helpful for growth of a baby of any kind, a baby mouse, a
Mhm.
baby human, a baby whatever, than the food and water. Like, you'll
Yeah.
die without food and water, but you'll die without love too. And
Mhm.
that safety feeling, I think safety is probably one of the biggest ones, because one of the huge trending terms right now is survival mode.
Yeah.
And now we have a term for it. We've always had it. We just didn't have a term for it.
Right.
Especially, a lot of single parent households, just higher divorce rates than there were 50 years ago. Most people have had some kind of, traumatic past, some sort of less than ideal situations. For the
Mhm.
people that are waking up to the fact that, hey, whatever I started with was not normal, was not ideal, I'm missing one of those three, or I was missing two of those three, or maybe even three of those three. What can
Mhm.
you suggest to people to start pouring into themselves and get back what they did not have?
Okay. So the main thing that I've noticed the most is that a lot of people don't like dealing with things that just makes them uncomfortable. And so I was one of those people. I was very defensive and like you like we're not talking about that. And who are you to tell me what I need to change? And so that was me all day, from a child to teenager. And so I just got to that place. I'm like, this can't be my life. This cannot be the internal me that is struggling with loving myself and loving others. I stayed angry. I stayed broken. Like I said, something in my book I shared that an experience of mine that had occurred with me, like totally broke me. And then seeing abuse, seeing a neglect, abandonment from my father and how he treated my mother. It was just a crazy experience for me. And then not being able to identify who I was, to go around other people and experience, to see others doing well, and then see others that look like me, but didn't know how to fix it. So, that first thing that I noticed, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to get to a place that you can accept that things have actually happened to you, which is life. But dealing with them, accepting that they have happened to you. And then on that journey of, to me, I love writing down because I get to see my vision. I get to see my problem so I can know exactly what I'm going to fix. And fix, I'm saying as in embrace. because people usually look at stuff as like, okay, A, B, C, D, E, this was my problems. Now let me check off A and then see if I can move to B. But the process in itself of the journey is about healing. But healing truly just means growing.
It
And
does. I
so
think
a
that's
lot of people miss what healing truly means because it doesn't erase emotions. It doesn't erase that something else is going to occur in your life. It just means that I know how to deal with it now
yes.
before it overtakes me. And that's what people miss most times. You can't erase what has happened, but you know how to face it and deal with it better.
Yeah, you get to take the
So,
emotion out of the past. You can't take the past away, but you can
yeah,
take the emotion out of it. That emotional charge when you look back at crazy scenarios, it does
mhm,
go away if you're willing to do that work and look at it.
yeah,
I do love that you said writing it down because there's something about writing it down that just makes it so much more real. A
yeah,
lot of people will go in and maybe say things out loud during a counseling session, something like that. And I do think that can be helpful
mhm,
mostly for venting purposes. But when you can see it, it really shows you your progress. Even if you look
yeah,
back at a year, or especially if it's a couple years, 5 years, you can be a completely different person. And it's
yes,
nice to have like that receipt, like, oh, that was me. I was so stressed about this. Like, that's
mhm, mhm,
nothing now. That's no big
mhm,
deal. Healing journey, I will freely admit that I was one of those people when it was probably like 7 years ago now. I was on a trip in California and I met someone. She did like yoga, Pilates, stuff like that for work, mostly online. And she was just talking about her spiritual journey and her healing journey. And I'm like, what is this? Like, that sounds like such like woo woo nonsense. I'm like, what are you like? What is this? I don't understand.
mhm,
And when it finally hit me that it wasn't anything, crazy, it was just the process of getting back to herself and fixing whatever wounds needed band-aids and things like
mhm,
that, processing that old stuff. Like, oh, got it. But I was one of those people who's like, "No, whatever that healing journey is, I don't need it. It's
mhm,
not for me." So,
mhm,
I do think the stigma on things like that, those words are just commonplace now. Like, not just on YouTube anymore, not just in a therapist office anymore. Like, they
yeah,
are more known words, at least for probably our age and under. Like, I really do hope that self help and mental health and all of those things stay kind of at the forefront like they
yeah,
are right now because it gives people a chance to be able to speak freely about things that were just so taboo before.
mhm.
And
And
anything that
it can actually help people where they're not at a place of suicide. Like, if you
oh,
can actually
yes.
encourage and help others mentally, they might just have a better chance of wanting to live than to think, I don't have anybody to help me. I don't have any resources or no encouragement to help me. Life, I'm just all alone, and then they commit suicide, so it's, I think all these different avenues of people, just not myself, but like you and other people that are here to try to help others to grow and to really understand who they are and embrace who they are. It gives better people a chance of wanting to live than to just live life going through the emotions but really just truly broken and angry inside.
Oh, yes. And there are, I was looking at some studies. There are so many scientific studies right now about the part of our brain that controls the will to live. Like, I knew of a will to live. Like, if you think of a movie and someone's about to fall off a cliff and they're like, no, I don't want to go. Or
Uh-huh.
sometimes those suicide movies where you see someone right on the verge and they're like, no, no, this is not what I want. I want to stay here. I want to be here. So I
Uh-huh.
knew there was a will to live, but I never thought about it from a biology standpoint that there's a part of our brain that has that. And I thought it was
Uh-huh.
extremely interesting that the way that that is built up or broken down is by our sense of discipline. I never would have linked those two concepts together
Yes.
in my mind. Now, of course, like everything I find in science, and I'm like, wow. And then I'm like, yeah, and the Bible said that first. Every single time I will be like, yeah, okay, yep, God saw that, gotcha. You had it
Mhm.
down from Jump Street, but I thought it was just crazy that will to live is based off discipline. So the more disciplined you are, the more that will to live increases. And
Yes.
if you think about a lot of the people who are super depressed in those very low areas, a lot of times it has something to do with discipline if you really look at it. Either discipline with substances, they can't say no to whatever their drug of choice is, and they've
Mm-hmm.
gotten hooked to a point of, numbing themselves, things like that. They just can't seem to free themselves. Or sometimes it'll be people with food issues and they just don't have the discipline to say no. That's their addiction. That's the thing they can't say no to, don't have the
Hmm.
discipline in. And it gets them to a really low point there too. But if people can kind of unwire and rework those same spaces that give them trouble, then the will to live keeps increasing. The muscle grows like any muscle we work, it grows. And I will say there's been a few people in life over the course of these big years over here that I've seen go from in a really bad place, hating their lives, hating their bodies, hating how, just really hating life, hating themselves, and being able to flip that just a little at a time, maybe, but flip it and be like, wow, okay, like I have a new lease on life. Like I'm a new person now, and really show up as that new person. So I think it all ties in together that even if the pain part of doing whatever your particular work is, no one's attracted to pain. We like pleasure. We don't want pain.
Exactly.
We don't
Right.
want to hurt. We don't want to walk through the mud. But
Mhm.
when we really look at it, if we can walk through the mud, there's another version of ourselves on the other side that is so worth it. That version
Absolutely.
of us we need and want is there.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
because that's what's gonna keep you going. Like things are always gonna change here in the world. So it's like if we stay stuck in one mentality, like how will you stay ahead with what's to come? So it's just kind of how I observe it. Like I always give the analogy of a wound. When you first cut yourself or get burned, you always have underneath the burn, the bleeding, but then after that, the process starts. And after the process of that wound, what happens after? You begin to see the crust because you've seen it begin to heal. And so even after that, when it's completely healed, you're still going to always see the scar. So you know it has happened to you, but you also know you healed as well. And so that's the journey. It's not the quick fix. Like a medication, people look for the quick fix, but it's not the quick fix. It's the long process. And even in that process, you're going to always remember, but you've grown through it. And so that's
yes.
kind of how I
And it
embrace
stops
looking at it.
hurting.
Yeah.
No, that's such a great
And it
analogy. It
stops,
doesn't hurt
definitely
anymore.
hurt.
Like, I can look at the
It's not
scar now.
sore. It's not sore anymore.
I
Yeah.
remember, but it does not feel the same way it felt on day one. And that, yeah, that's definitely a great analogy. It does take that little amount of time, takes a little amount of care to it, but then the pain slowly goes away. So
Yeah.
I think that's good overall. I mean, with holistic healing, wellness, all of that, I feel like it all ties in together because if you're not good in one space, it's really hard to be good in the next space. It's like levels you've got to get to. Like, okay, I've got to, healing comes in layers almost.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I got to heal this layer. I can't get to that
Mhm.
next version. So I think no matter what, even if you look at the massive growth and healing that you've done, I guarantee anyone who's gone through some things knows like it's never over, it's never done. There's always something else that
Absolutely.
yeah, there's
That's how I
always
agree.
something else. My
Yeah.
husband used to joke like, "How many books are you gonna read? Like, are you fixed yet?" I'm like, "Bro, like,
So
there's
no,
always more books."
I'm growing and expanding, and then
Right.
you just continue to do it because once one thing opens in your brain and it releases those chemicals in the brain, you're gonna keep wanting to feed it, and then you're gonna keep wanting to grow and change.
Oh, yes. And it does take time to do that rewiring anyway. So
Yes.
even if it
Mhm.
is the holy grail, best of best books on whatever the topic is. It takes 10,000 reps of anything to
Mhm.
build the
Awesome.
muscle, build that neural pathway. So it's
Mhm.
gonna take a little bit of effort. So even if I feel like okay, I feel good about that, it's still gonna need
Mhm.
a little more, and then something else might come up from it. So life just life's like that. There's
Yes.
always something.
Yes, definitely.
I did see that the authors of Attached had a parenting version too, and I have
Mhm.
not read it or even ordered it or anything yet, but
Mhm.
I would be curious to see if some of those things that you talked about, especially those big 3, I feel like they will come up because there are a couple spots in here where it talks
Mhm.
about for the kids having that safe, loving station of mom.
Mhm.
Those kids are secure and they don't have the same freakouts and things like that. They're like, okay, well, I'm in a new spot, but mom's here, so I'm okay. So they almost come with that internal security. And I do feel like if you're hitting those main 3, you're going to come with the internal security. So if I do get to that one, I'll have to follow up with you and let you know if those
Okay.
big
And
3.
I'll actually read it too. If you send me that link to that, I'll get the book and I'll read it too so we can actually see it together.
Yeah, I feel like there's
Mhm.
going to be a lot in there. And I did like there are several books on attachment, but I like that this one had so many studies. Like every couple pages, a study was mentioned, and it was not the
Mhm.
same ones on repeat. It was different ones to reinforce points. So, with being the same authors, I'm sure the parenting one will be similar and have the actual science too. I like to find the science because I like to see if it lines up with the Bible
Yeah.
part. So that's the part I can't get away from. Like I used to hate science in school. That's the class I didn't want to go to. I'm like, I don't care. I know who made it all. I'm good. And they'd be like, you still have
I
to go to
actually
class.
loved it. I loved it.
I liked
I just
chemistry, but not science.
oof, I didn't like chemistry.
I was pre-med before I decided to have a child and all of that. I wanted to be a doctor and work in a lab and all of that. And now, as a grown person, I cannot
Mhm.
imagine. I feel like I would have been miserable and very bored. I would have liked to wear the white coat, no lies there. Would not like to iron and starch it, but I would like to wear the white coat. But besides that, I'm like, I am so glad that that is not where life
Yeah.
went. That was the game plan, but I'm glad it didn't go there. Well, I am so glad that we finally got a time that works for us to connect.
Mhm.
I feel like there's a lot of good stuff that you're working on. I like binge watch your stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I want to know about that. So I'm sure we will find commonalities in the future too.
Me
Um,
too.
any final thoughts or any food for thought for anyone watching about anything wellness related, like your biggest ticket, if you had to just tell them the one thing, what would your one thing be?
Well, my main focus is always to remember that we are one being. We're created in the image of God. And so that we need to always remember to be one with Him, to be able to suffice our lives. And when I say that mind, body, and spirit. And so we got to be mindful with the things that we watch and the way we think because they actually create the actual, the reality of what we say, what we do, how we act, and how we respond. And so I didn't get that growing up, but I'm actually more mindful to that now. And then I kind of exercise that with my kids. And so my takeaway to give any encouragement to the viewers is that creating that oneness with, and I know everybody's from different religions. And so, but whatever that higher being is for you, there's someone that's higher than us that is always directing and guiding us. Trust that inner voice to guide yourself and be one with yourself while being one with the creator of heaven and earth. And I would always say that diet, this is a whole nother topic in itself, but diet is so important because getting the right minerals and the nutrients from the plants and the fruits actually give you a more clearer state of mind that
Oh,
you actually
definitely.
have more pure and clearer thoughts. And so just being one in every area, definitely it helps you renew yourself per day to continue to be that best version of yourself. So I would say to anyone, when you do your work, write down everything from your thoughts to your emotions, your experiences, and how you vision being in the future. And then just go for it. It's going to be tough. It's going to be some work, but just keep going because you will never know what's on the other side if you just not choose it. But if you choose it, you have the opportunity to really find out truly, truly what you can be or who you can be. So
Oh,
that's what I
yes.
would.
I love all of that. I always say, "Why not us? Why not me?" And I
Why not?
think yeah, just having that internal confidence of, "Okay, well, I'm not gonna know unless I jump in and try." I did think of the other thing that I wanted to ask you about. I'm sorry to throw
Mhm,
you for a loop because there was no warning on this one. But when the other night, I think it was on a live, whatever it was, there was something that I have not really heard you talk about, but that I watch you embody, and I feel like
mhm,
you need to talk about and give some tea on. So, feminine energy is a huge topic, just as females being able to kind of relax into our position, whether, in the home with our husbands or just out in the world. I feel like you have a very relaxed and calm energy, even, talking to the kids, walking through whatever came up. Like, there was no reaction on your face, no, I don't know a good way to word that. I didn't think this question through clearly, but
mhm.
I feel like you sit and embody your feminine energy very well. Do you have any topics on that or anything that comes to mind for how you are so peaceful in that space?
Mm, no, not really. I mean, I actually watched how, like I said, the psychiatrist I used to work with, I used to watch how she just operate. And even if something was to pop up or happen, she always knew how to stay in control. And I think maybe because I'm a medical assistant. I don't know. I know how to stay under control even when chaos is happening. I mean, I don't seen people pass out. I've seen people go into seizures. I don't seen where we had to actually take control and do CPR. I've actually had to hurry up and do an EKG on the patient and actually saved his life. And those are the exciting moments of my job. So even helping patients is the same as trying to help individuals, be their best self. And so maybe that is what has caused me to
Giving
be
you
able to
emotional
get a.
control. You got
Yes,
that
maybe that's it.
emotional
Maybe that
mastery.
training has it because like naturally I do know how to stay under pressure. Like this is a personal moment, like a personal thing I'm about to share. But even my teenager daughter, she had a panic attack. And so with her having that panic attack, my husband was like, "How did you do it? You stayed calm and was able to calm her, even getting her, to the emergency room just to make sure she was okay." He was like, "How did you do it?" Because he was all over the place. He got so worked up he drove past the emergency room.
Oh, no.
But he was like, "You stayed under control." And I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I'm just trained to stay under control. I know before I would be all over the place. Like when I was a teenager, I didn't know how to control. But once I went to school for medical assisting and then everything that they train you to know and to learn to do, it just came along with the job because I've been in this field now for 7 years. And so maybe it just came with the job. So
Well, it's a
yeah.
great skill. A lot of people struggle with emotional mastery, especially women. So I think that's a skill you definitely can check the box on. Add it to the resume. We're going to make your intro even longer next time. Okay. She also has down emotional mastery, guys. So, well, I will link all your channel info so anyone can go check out your stuff, your work, your book, all of that. Is it in Amazon or is it on storefront? Like, what's the best way to get to your book?
Yes. So it's on Amazon and it's also on Barnes and Nobles for those who go on there. I
Okay.
actually have a journal. I actually have a self-guided journal that's attached to it as a companion.
Well, that's
because
great.
it kind of goes in hand in hand.
Okay. Does it
Mhm.
have do you have, like, prompts in it, or is it blank page?
Yes, it's prompts. So you're gonna do some
Okay.
writing. You're gonna go do some reflection every week. You're gonna actually create your own way, like your own journey. And so there's a vision board at the end, so you can go back. And even like these are like my book is a short read, but it's very impactful and I share a lot in it. And then even my journal, the same. So what it is going to do is basically start your foundation. And so I didn't want to have something so lingering that no one wouldn't finish it. Because the point of it was to start your journey so you can discover and identify you. And so the same with my journal, I decided to get you started and then you just keep going.
I love that, and I love bite size because 'cause you're totally right. If it's too much, you'll be like, "And, yeah, tap out."
Right. Because
But if
I'm
it's
like that myself.
Oh, yes, me too. I have bought who knows books and therapy are probably where the most of my money has gone, I swear, but there are so many books where I will get through just a portion of it and be like, "Yeah, that's too much. Let me go
Yeah.
ahead and tap on out." I think
Right.
another
Right.
book I think didn't we talk about The Mountain Is You?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
thought so. That is one of the hardest books I have ever read in my life because every single part, like, forces you to just go super deep. Like, you can't
mm-hmm.
get by with surface level in that book. It took me all summer, and I mean, I normally, like,
Yeah.
fly through a book in a few days, and it
Yes.
took me all summer. I'm like, "Man," but when you do that work, it always pays off. So,
Yes,
one
that
of
is a
those
recommended book. Recommended
Oh,
book.
high,
So to
high
the
on the
audience
list.
now and the audience later, go get that book and take your time and read that book. It would bless you for real. It
Yes,
will.
and the workbook too. Normally, I am
Yeah.
not big on workbooks, but I do think the workbook for that one was all deep inner work too. And
Mhm,
it wasn't
mhm,
just the easy ones. Like you'll see a
mhm.
lot of the same things repeat, like talking to yourself years ago, things like that, talking to your inner child. Those are great practices, but sometimes you can make it surface level. And if you do, you're not going to get anything out of it. But it was like,
Right.
in there, like, find a picture of your I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to see my mullet and my whatever, my freckles and my big glasses. I can leave those where they are at." But I do think that book just had a lot of gems, and I feel like yours probably does too, because you got the wisdom there, and then it's always nice when you can see the receipts on a person, like, when you can show up with, "Hey, I've been there. It was crazy, but here I am on the other
Mhm.
side." So that other side is always super nice as well. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure we will be in contact. Any other gems or do you have any homework from your journal? Do you want to
Mhm.
give them some homework? Give them a prompt. Give them something good to leave
Well,
with. Little
I will
taste.
leave y'all with this, 'cause this is something that I did, and I'm still doing it. Um, this something I heard from many other people that actually encourage others too. And it was something that they said to me, and I was like, should I try it? Because I'm really going to not know how I'm gonna respond. But I will leave you with this homework. Take the time to just completely, if you feel comfortable now, but you got to do it. Get totally naked, look in the mirror, and look at yourself wholeheartedly and see how your emotions within you respond. And when you look at yourself, and depending on how you feel in that moment, you will know exactly where you need to work on within you because your response of that emotion will come up and tell you exactly where you sit. And
Oh,
I
that's
did
so
that.
true.
I did that work and I was like, hmm. So now I know you need some more self confidence. You need you don't need to be ashamed. And if there's certain things that you completely don't like, especially if there's room to change it, work on changing it. That's all.
I love that too. And I think there are stages of life that can be easier and harder to do that. I think about the ones who maybe just had a baby or something like that. It's
Right.
gonna be a little
Now they get the pass. They get a pass.
you definitely get a pass, but it is difficult anytime you've gone through a change of any
Yes.
sort. Like if you've gone through some sort of change and that's not the body you used to see in the mirror, it can be
Right.
difficult. Even if it's good changes, like you just, had a surgery or dropped a bunch of weight or whatever, like
Yes.
that's one of those I do feel like is a deep
Mhm.
exercise because you don't know what you're gonna get. You might think you look good and then you do that and you're like, oh
Right.
well, maybe I need to work on this or that. But it's one of those deep work ones. Like you
It
can't
is.
hide from naked.
You
So
can't.
one
But
of those
but
things.
it's gonna share with you exactly how you feel about yourself, because when you look in the mirror, you're gonna see you. And then when you lay down at night, you with yourself. Even if you got your husband or whoever in the bed, you still gonna have your last reflections on you. So it's all about that self mastery of truly who we are, and then connecting with the creator to actually exemplify that whatever my purpose is for my life here.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
it. May we all find purposes that align with passion like that because
Yeah.
I feel like that's that little key that unlocks it. Like we're all here for a reason, but when that passion and purpose line up, that's the place to
Yep.
go.
That's
So,
it.
all
Mm.
right. Well, have an awesome weekend. I'm sure I'll talk to
You
you soon,
too.
but I will link all your stuff. So if you have not already found her, go find her. Check the book, check all the links, get the
Mm.
things, and get yourself to the best version of you possible. Bye,
All
guys.
right. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're so welcome.
All right. Talk to you soon.